Hi, and thank you for your interest in our intelligent hood objects. Today I'm going to be demonstrating several hood objects of different styles that were created with intelligence so that they're fully resizable. The hoods will respond to the height, width, and depth dimension changes typical of any cabinet. So let's demonstrate that now. Okay. And then there's a collection of settings down here in the attributes that will control the height of the objects within. So we can control the hood top height, its width, its depth. So let's demonstrate some changes to those elements. Set the hood height to 20 inches. We'll set the hood top width perhaps to 25 inches. And we will set the hood top depth perhaps to 14 inches. And then you have another one here where you can control the vent enclosure height with it, which is this box down here. And all of the elements adjust appropriately. Next, we're going to take you to the cabinet level so that we can demonstrate 2.1 through 2.5. Here's the cabinet at the cabinet level, and let's rotate it around so that we can see underneath. The vent mount is this cutout here. First, we're going to talk about the vent mount parameters, and then there's a vent cutout, which is the cutout up here for the stack, which is on the inside of this vent enclosure. So you can change the bottom scribe. Bottom scribe is the recess of the mount bottom. Then we're going to affect the depth clearance of the mount, which is here. Then we're going to affect the mount's depth and width, which is the cutout here. All of the parts and the internal support parts are adjusting appropriately. Now we're going to rotate this object around so that we can see down and into the vent cutout, which are these parameters here. I can change its depth clearance. Let me set it to something large so that you can see it. Change. So its depth clearance is here. And it too has a vent cutout depth and width. Which is changing the depth of this hole this way and the width of the hole that way. So if we look over here and we section through, we can see how these two cutouts work together. This right here is the cutout in the bottom, and those are the supports front and rear, and then there are side supports left and right for the vent mount. Now the cutout sits in the top above, and that can be set to whatever parameters you would need it to be. You can control the depth clearance here and the depth of the cutout, the depth clearance here, and the depth of this cutout for the mount and the cutout. So as you can see, this object is fully sizable and configurable for any hood that you would want to mount in this vent enclosure. This object is also using the basic capabilities of cabinet vision. So if we were to change the door style attached to this object, we would see that the object updates appropriately. So next we're going to talk about how this is a collection of objects within cabinet vision. So if you look at the reports page, you can see that that object is built up of many sub-objects. So you have these sub-objects creating that one object that is fully resizable and configurable. So now let's see how this translates to reporting. We can come over here to the reports page and we can run a part sheets report, and we can select that object and go to drawing. And we will see then on our drawings page all of the parts that need to be cut listed for that object. You can see all the angles that you need to do in order to cut list this object, and if this was going to CNC, those parts would be cut. So let's quickly look at some of the other objects that we have brought into this job. Let's go look at this object at the cabinet level. And you can see that this is a complicated unit with many different parameters that can be resized. So let's talk about the controls that we have for this upper section. You can control the side upper's depth, which will control both this upper and that upper, and in contrast it'll pull this one as well. And you can control this width, which will control the width of the center section as well. And then you can control the center upper recess, so it's the recess back for the center upper. So we can demonstrate changes to this group of objects by entering in new values for each one of these, and you can see how they behave with one another. And again, you have the same controls down below for the vent mount and the vent cutout, which is referring to the vent mount down here and the vent cutout in here. This object also has some intelligence to prevent selections that might cause problems. So for instance, if I increase the width of this vent cutout and it starts to come in contact with these uppers sides, these uppers will then react and become smaller to accommodate the vent cutout. So I'm going to come over here to the vent cutout width. We'll set this to 20. We'll see that that cutout is now approaching the sides, and then we'll set the cutout to 25, and we'll see that those uppers then are resized smaller so that they can accommodate the cutout. And let's go review one last object. So this object is quite an interesting object because it has a sloped belt line. Now this sloped belt line will respond to all of the sizing that occurs on this object. So if you resize this upper hood box, the belt line will dynamically change. And again, this is fully cut listable, and it contains the same vent mount and vent cutout capabilities as each of the other hoods demonstrated. I want to thank you for your interest in our intelligent hood objects, and if you have any questions, please give us a call.